started without my apron on. Silly me. I know! Can't forget my apron. Goodness me. Hello again, and welcome back. This is Confessions of an Everyday Cook with Morgan. Today we're going to be making chicken pot pie. I'm going to show you how to make the crust, the filling, and we're going to make them into nice, cute little individual sized pies. We got a lot of work to do, so let's get started. Okay, let's work on the filling of our pie. We're gonna start off with some chicken. I'm gonna use a mixture of chicken thighs and breasts because that's what I have in my fridge. It's gotta get used. We wanna use about a pound of chicken. All right, and we just want these to be in nice little cubes. That way when you bite into the pie, you're not gonna get like a big chunk of chicken you gotta chew through. These are bite size. And you'll notice that while I'm doing this, I do have 2 cutting boards out. We don't want to chop the rest of our ingredients on the same board that we're chopping our raw chicken. The reason for this is to avoid any cross-contamination between the raw meat and the vegetables. Make sure you're staying healthy out there, guys. Anytime I'm making chicken pot pie, all I can think of is that movie Chicken Run. I don't want to be a pie. I don't like gravy. If you haven't seen it, it's this really funny claymation movie of a chicken farm that gets converted into a pie factory, and the chickens fight back the owners so that they don't get turned into pies. I always thought it was really hilarious growing up. One of those random weird childhood movies, among many. I've done all the chicken I'm gonna do. I'm gonna go ahead and wash my hands and wash my knife, because there's no cross-contamination happening here, folks. So I have an onion here that I have already chopped in half. When you are dicing an onion, the way I like to do it is to leave the root intact. That way, as I cut it, it stays together. We're gonna cut a slit in the middle of that without going all the way towards the root. Then we're gonna cut it this way. And this is where the root comes in handy to have intact. We got our onions. Now some celery. Just nice little dices. So this recipe, and really all recipes, I like having everything cut up and ready to go before I actually start cooking. That way I'm not partially through the cooking process and then realize, oh, I need onions now, but I haven't chopped them yet, and then stuff ends up not how you want it, stuff ends up burning, you know, just chaos. Okay. I did about 1/3 cup of the celery. And to make things easy, I'm going to be using frozen peas and carrots. I like using these just because they're already cooked, they're ready to go, they're already cut and everything, and you just throw them in and you're good to go. Okay, so we've done all of our prep as far as the filling, so I'm gonna take you over to the stove and we're gonna get that going. So let's go ahead and do that. The first thing we're gonna do here at the stove is get our chicken done. Nico, hey baby. Dance. Yeah. I have this on medium heat. I'm gonna put about 2 tablespoons of butter in here. We're gonna let this heat up and then we're gonna add our chicken in. And we just wanna cook these until they are cooked through. Make sure there's no pink in there. I'm gonna hit this with a little bit of salt and pepper. It's very important to make sure you're seasoning every step of the way. It helps your dish develop layers of flavor throughout the entire cooking process. When these are done, I'm going to put them on a paper towel lined plate. That way they're sitting there, they're ready to go when we add it into the rest of our filling. We're gonna let this cool down a bit, and then I'm going to get started on cooking the onions and celery. I have 1/3 cup of butter. Just cut those into little slices. Woo! And we're gonna let this melt over medium heat. Go ahead and add your onions and celery. We're gonna let this cook down a little bit until the onions are almost translucent. You wanna cook them just enough that they're soft, but they're not getting a lot of color on them. While this is going, I'm gonna add some garlic. I'm probably gonna add about a half a tablespoon, as well as a pinch of crushed red pepper flakes, just to add a little bit of heat in there. Add some salt, some pepper, and a half a tablespoon of celery seed. These are nearly done. I'm going to add about a cup of my peas and carrots. Now we're going to slowly add in 1/3 of a cup of flour. You want to make sure to really incorporate this. And we're gonna let the flour cook in here for about 2 or 3 minutes, just to get rid of the raw flour taste. This is also what's gonna help the filling thicken. Now we're going to slowly add 1 3/4 cups of chicken broth and 2/3 cup of milk. We're gonna let this simmer over medium-low heat until it comes to a nice thick consistency. Meanwhile, we're also gonna add back in our cooked chicken. Okay, now we're going to get started on our pie crust. We need to move quickly because the butter needs to stay cold. I have 3 cups of all-purpose flour in here. We're going to add 2 sticks of butter that I've chopped into nice little cubes, and then a half a cup of vegetable shortening. We're gonna use the paddle attachment to cut the butter into the flour. We want the butter and flour mixture to resemble rice. You don't want big chunks of butter or shortening just sitting in there. While that is going, I'm gonna quickly whisk up an egg. All right, beautiful. This is the texture we want. So I'm going to quickly add my 1 egg and a half teaspoon of white vinegar. Next, I have some water that has been sitting in a cup with some ice. We're going to add 1 tablespoon at a time until our dough comes together. You want to make sure that you are not over mixing your dough or it's going to become tough. I only used about 3 tablespoons. The pie dough is all done. I'm going to go ahead and take it over to the workstation where I'm going to roll it out and cut it to form our crusts. Okay, so we need to work quick with the pie dough. I have some flour here I'm going to add to my work surface, just a little bit, as well as add some flour to my rolling pin. We're going to take some of our pie dough. You don't want to take very much. So here I have a cup that I'm using to make my bottom crust. You want it just big enough to fit inside your muffin tin. Don't forget to spray your muffin tin before you add your dough in. For the bottom crust, you need it to be a little bit bigger than the top crust. So I'm using a cup for the bottom, and then I'm using a 4-inch biscuit cutter for the top of my pies. Okay, we have all of our pie crust done. We have our filling. I also have a cup of egg wash. It's just 2 eggs and a dash of water that I've whisked together. What we're going to do is we're going to fill each of our little pies. It's a little less than a 1/4 cup that are fitting into my specific pies. Make sure you're getting a little bit of everything in the filling to go in the pie. That way you're getting some chicken, you're getting some onion, you're getting some peas and carrots. Now we're going to take our egg wash and go along the edges of the crust here so that this crust will bind with the top crusts we're adding on. Now we're going to take the top of our pie crust, pat them with a little bit of flour, and we're going to press them into the mold on top of the other ones. And then we're going to take a fork and lightly go around the edges to help really seal it shut. Another way that you can do this if you don't have the time to make a pie crust is you can actually use canned biscuits. You'll want to use 2 biscuits for the pie, 1 for the top and 1 for the bottom. All right, we're just gonna poke little holes in the top of our pies. This will allow the steam to escape while they're cooking, and you're not gonna end up with an exploding pie. Now that's done, we're gonna take our egg wash and go across the top of all of our pies. This is gonna help create a nice golden brown crust. Make sure you're getting the entire crust, don't neglect the sides. These are gonna go in the oven for about 20 minutes at 425 degrees Fahrenheit. All right, these are all done. I did end up adding about 8 more minutes to the time. And before they were cooled all the way, I did go ahead and take a paring knife to help loosen the ends a little bit. But let's go ahead and give this a try. Gotta get a little bit of everything in there. Holy cow, that is so good. The crust is perfectly buttery and flaky. There's a really great ratio of crust to filling. We did a good job. That is amazing. I might sit down and eat like 6 of these. All right, great job today, guys. Thank you so much for joining me in making some individual chicken pot pies. As always, make sure that you are liking and subscribing, as well as checking out my Instagram page, @Confessions of an Everyday Cook. It's pie time. We'll see you next time. Bye!